17 days after being abandoned at the altar in front of 300 guests, Evelyn Wexler found herself in a wedding dress again. Except this time, the groom was a man she'd never spoken to, and her father made it clear she had no choice. Roman Vale didn't ask for her hand. He bought it. And if she refused, her late grandmother's bakery, the only thing she had left of her mother, would be demolished by morning. So Evelyn stood at the altar, shaking with fury instead of tears, and made a decision that would either save her or destroy her completely. If you want to see how this impossible marriage survives betrayal, bloodshed, and a love neither of them saw coming, stay until the end. And don't forget to hit that like button and drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. The dress didn't fit right. It was too tight across the ribs, too loose at the shoulders, and the lace scratched against Evelyn's collarbone like it was punishing her for wearing it. She stood in front of the full-length mirror in a room she didn't recognize, in a house that wasn't hers, staring at a reflection that looked like someone else entirely. 17 days ago, she had worn a different dress. That one had fit perfectly. She'd chosen every detail, the cut, the silk, the tiny pearl buttons down the back. She'd stood in a bridal suite surrounded by bridesmaids who squealed and cried and told her she looked like a dream. And then Adrian hadn't shown up. No phone call. No explanation. Just his best man, white-faced and stammering, telling her in front of everyone that Adrian was gone. That he'd left. That he wasn't coming back. Evelyn had stood there in that perfect dress, in front of 300 people, and felt her entire life collapse in real time. Now, she was in another wedding dress. A borrowed one, pulled from someone's closet and shoved into her arms 2 hours ago. It smelled faintly of mothballs and lavender, and the hem dragged on the floor because whoever had worn it before was taller. The door opened behind her. "You're not even crying." Her father's voice was flat, almost disappointed. "I thought you'd put up more of a fight." Evelyn didn't turn around. She kept her eyes on the mirror, on the stranger staring back at her. "What's the point?" "Good." He stepped into the room, his shoes clicking against the hardwood. "Then you understand the situation." "I understand you're selling me." "I'm saving you from embarrassment." His tone sharpened. "Do you have any idea what people are saying about you, about this family? You were left at the altar, Evelyn. You're a joke. No one is going to take you seriously after this. No one is going to want you." She flinched. She hated that it still hurt. "Roman Vale wants you," her father continued, "and he's willing to pay for the privilege. This is the best option you have." "The best option," Evelyn repeated slowly. "You mean the only option?" "I mean the option that keeps your grandmother's bakery standing." He moved closer, and she could see him in the mirror now, tall, graying, expensively dressed, and completely unmoved by the look on her face. "If you refuse this, I will have that building demolished by the end of the week. I will sell the land, pocket the money, and you will have nothing left of her, nothing left of your mother. Do you understand me?" Evelyn's hands curled into fists at her sides. "You're a bastard." "I'm a realist." He adjusted his cufflinks, bored. "And you're out of time. The car is waiting." She wanted to scream. She wanted to rip the dress off and walk out of this place and never look back. But she thought about the bakery. The faded sign above the door, the scarred wooden counters, the smell of butter and sugar that still clung to the walls even though it had been closed for months. Her grandmother had built that place from nothing. Her mother had grown up there, kneading dough on Sunday mornings and learning to make croissants that melted on your tongue. It was all Evelyn had left. "Fine," she said quietly. Her father smiled. "Smart girl." The ceremony was small, cold, nothing like the wedding she'd planned with Adrian. There were no flowers, no music, no guests crying happy tears. Just a judge, a mahogany desk, and 2 witnesses Evelyn didn't recognize. The room smelled like old paper and furniture polish, and the lighting was too harsh, making everything feel clinical and wrong. Roman Vale stood beside her, and Evelyn refused to look at him. She knew who he was, of course. Everyone in the city knew who Roman Vale was. He owned half the docks, controlled more than half the underground trade routes, and had a reputation that made grown men go quiet when his name came up. People didn't cross Roman Vale. People didn't even look at him the wrong way. And now she was marrying him. The judge was talking, reading from a script in a monotone voice, but Evelyn wasn't listening. She was too busy trying not to shake, trying not to let anyone see how badly she wanted to run. "Do you, Evelyn Marie Wexler, take this man to be your lawfully wedded husband?" She opened her mouth. Nothing came out. The judge waited. Her father, standing behind her, cleared his throat. A warning. Evelyn closed her eyes. "I do." "And do you, Roman Alexander Vale, take this woman to be your lawfully wedded wife?" "I do." His voice was low, steady, and completely devoid of emotion, like he was signing a contract, not a marriage license. "Then by the power vested in me by the state, I now pronounce you husband and wife." No one clapped. No one said congratulations. The judge closed his book, and that was it. Evelyn was married again. The car ride to the Vale estate was silent. Roman sat across from her in the back of a black town car, his long legs stretched out, his hands resting loosely on his knees. He hadn't said a word since they left the courthouse, hadn't even looked at her. Evelyn stared out the window, watching the city blur past, and tried to figure out what the hell she was supposed to do now. The car turned off the main road and started climbing a hill, the houses getting bigger and farther apart, until they pulled up to a set of iron gates that opened automatically. The driveway was long, lined with trees that looked like they'd been there for 100 years, and at the end of it was a house that could only be described as a mansion. Stone walls, tall windows, a front door that looked like it belonged on a castle. Evelyn felt her stomach twist. The driver opened her door, and she stepped out onto the gravel, the borrowed dress dragging behind her. Roman was already out of the car, walking toward the house without waiting for her. She stood there for a second, frozen. This was her life now. "Are you coming, or are you planning to sleep in the driveway?" Evelyn's head snapped up. Roman had stopped at the top of the steps, one hand on the door, looking back at her with an expression that gave away absolutely nothing. She lifted her chin and walked forward. Inside, the house was exactly what she expected. Massive, cold, and decorated like a museum. Marble floors, high ceilings, furniture that looked like no one had ever actually sat on it. A woman appeared in the hallway, older, elegant, with sharp eyes and perfectly styled hair. She looked Evelyn up and down, her gaze lingering on the ill-fitting dress, and then turned to Roman. "So this is her." "This is my wife," Roman said evenly. "Evelyn, this is my mother, Vivian Vale." Vivian's smile was thin. "How lovely." Evelyn didn't smile back. "Nice to meet you." "I'm sure." Vivian's eyes flicked to Roman. "I've had the East Wing prepared. I assume you'll want separate rooms?" Roman didn't hesitate. "Yes." Something in Evelyn's chest tightened, though she couldn't say why. This was what she wanted, wasn't it? Distance, space, no expectations. "Of course." Vivian's smile widened just slightly. "I'll have Margaret show you to your room, dear." A housekeeper appeared from nowhere, a middle-aged woman with kind eyes and a no-nonsense air. "This way, Mrs. Vale." "Mrs. Vale." Evelyn felt sick. She followed Margaret up a wide staircase, down a hallway lined with oil paintings of people she didn't know, and into a bedroom that was bigger than her entire apartment had been. The walls were pale blue, the furniture was antique, and there was a 4-poster bed in the center that looked like something out of a period drama. "If you need anything, just ring," Margaret said, gesturing to a small bell on the nightstand. "Dinner is at 7. And then she was gone. Evelyn stood in the middle of the room, still wearing the borrowed dress, and felt the weight of everything crash down on her at once. She sank onto the edge of the bed and pressed her hands to her face. She didn't cry. She was done crying. Dinner was worse than the wedding. The dining room was enormous, the table long enough to seat 20 people, and Evelyn sat at one end while Roman sat at the other, with his mother between them like a referee. A younger man, mid-20s, dark hair, sharp grin, sat across from Vivian, watching Evelyn like she was the most interesting thing he'd seen all week. "So," he said, leaning back in his chair, "you're the girl who got left at the altar." "Dante," Roman said quietly. "What?" "I'm just stating facts." Dante's grin widened. "Adrian Calloway, right?" "Yeah, I heard about that. Brutal." Evelyn set down her fork. "Is there a point to this?" "Just curious." He shrugged. "I mean, you went from one wedding to another in less than 3 weeks. That's got to be some kind of record." "Dante," Roman said again, and this time his voice had an edge. Dante raised his hands in mock surrender. Fine, fine. I'll behave. Vivian dabbed at her mouth with a napkin. Evelyn, dear, I hope you understand that this family operates under certain expectations. Roman has responsibilities, and as his wife, you'll be expected to uphold the Vale name. That means discretion, loyalty, and an understanding that some questions are better left unasked. Evelyn met her gaze. I'm not stupid. I didn't say you were. Vivian's smile was glacial. I'm simply making sure we understand each other. I think we do. Good. The rest of the meal passed in painful silence. Evelyn pushed food around her plate, barely tasting any of it, and counted down the minutes until she could leave. Finally, Roman stood. I have work to do. Evelyn, feel free to explore the house. Dante, stop antagonizing her. Dante grinned. No promises. Roman left without another word, and Evelyn sat there, staring at her untouched plate, wondering how the hell she was going to survive this. The next 3 days were a blur. Evelyn barely saw Roman. He left early in the morning and came back late at night, and when he was home, he locked himself in his study and didn't come out. She wandered the house like a ghost, exploring rooms she wasn't sure she was allowed to be in, and tried not to think about the fact that she was completely alone. Vivian watched her constantly. Not obviously, but Evelyn could feel it, the way her gaze lingered, the way she seemed to be waiting for Evelyn to screw up. Dante, on the other hand, seemed determined to be as obnoxious as possible. So, what do you do all day? He asked one afternoon, dropping onto the couch beside her in the library. Just sit here? Pretty much, Evelyn said without looking up from her book. That sounds boring as hell. It is. He studied her for a long moment. You're not what I expected. What did you expect? I don't know, someone more fragile, I guess. He tilted his head. Roman said you were desperate, that your dad sold you off to save some bakery. Evelyn's jaw tightened. He said that? More or less. Dante shrugged. But you don't seem desperate. You seem pissed off. I am pissed off. Good. He grinned. That's way more interesting. Evelyn finally looked at him. Do you have a point, or are you just here to annoy me? Little bit of both. He stood, stretching. But for what it's worth, I think you're going to be fine. Roman doesn't bring people into this house unless he thinks they can handle it. And if you can handle him, you can handle anything. He left before she could respond. On the fourth night, Evelyn woke up to the sound of breaking glass. She sat up in bed, heart pounding, and strained to listen. Voices. Low, urgent, coming from somewhere downstairs. She slipped out of bed, pulled on a robe, and crept into the hallway. The voices were louder now. Angry. She made her way down the stairs, staying close to the wall, and stopped when she saw the light spilling out from under the door to Roman's study. Don't care what he thinks, Roman was saying, his voice colder than she'd ever heard it. If he steps out of line again, I'll handle it myself. He's not going to back down. That was Dante. Not unless you make him. Then I'll make him. There was a pause, and then another voice, older, rougher. What about the girl? Evelyn froze. What about her? Roman asked. She's a liability. You married her to settle a debt, fine. But now people know who she is. They know she's yours. That makes her a target. Then we keep her safe. Or we get rid of her. The silence that followed was deafening. Evelyn's breath caught in her throat. No one touches her, Roman said finally, and his voice was deadly quiet. Do you understand me? No one. Roman, I said no one. Evelyn didn't wait to hear the rest. She turned and ran back upstairs, her heart hammering in her chest, and locked herself in her room. She leaned against the door, shaking, and tried to process what she'd just heard. A target. She was a target. And Roman, who barely spoke to her, who acted like she didn't exist, had just threatened someone for suggesting they get rid of her. Evelyn sank to the floor and pressed her hands to her face. What the hell had she gotten herself into? The next morning, Roman was waiting for her in the dining room. He was sitting at the head of the table, a cup of coffee in front of him, reading something on his phone. He didn't look up when she walked in. Evelyn poured herself coffee and sat down across from him. They ate in silence for several minutes. Finally, Roman set down his phone. "You were outside my study last night." Evelyn's hand froze halfway to her cup. "I heard voices." "I know." He leaned back in his chair, watching her. "What did you hear?" She considered lying, then decided there was no point. "Enough." Roman's expression didn't change. And I want to know what the hell is going on." She set down her cup, meeting his gaze. "I want to know why I'm a target. I want to know what kind of debt you settled by marrying me. And I want to know what you meant when you said no one touches me." He was quiet for a long moment. Then he stood. "Come with me, Todd." He led her to his study, closed the door behind them, and gestured for her to sit. Evelyn stayed standing. Roman walked to the window, hands in his pockets, and stared out at the grounds. "Your father owed me money, a lot of it. He borrowed from me 3 years ago to keep his company afloat, and he never paid it back. I could have taken everything he owned, but he made me an offer instead." Evelyn's stomach dropped. "Me? You?" Roman glanced at her. "He said you were getting married, that Adrian Calloway was from a good family, and that once you were settled, he'd have the money to pay me back. But then Adrian left, and your father panicked. He knew I was losing patience, so he offered you again, directly this time. And you said yes." "I said yes." Evelyn felt like she'd been punched. "Why?" Roman turned to face her fully. "Because I needed a wife. Not for love, not for companionship, for legitimacy. There are people in this city who see me as nothing more than a criminal, a thug. Marrying into a respectable family, your family, gives me a foothold in circles I couldn't reach otherwise. So I'm a business transaction. Yes." The bluntness of it stung more than she expected. "But," Roman continued, "that doesn't mean I'm going to let anyone hurt you. You're my wife now, that makes you untouchable. And anyone who tries to use you against me will regret it." Evelyn stared at him. "You don't even know me." "I don't need to." He moved closer, and for the first time she saw something other than coldness in his eyes. "You're mine now, Evelyn. That's all that matters." She should have been terrified. Instead, she felt something else. Something sharper, hotter. Anger. "I'm not a piece of property," she said quietly. "I know." "Then stop treating me like one." Roman's jaw tightened. "What do you want from me?" "I want the truth." She stepped closer, refusing to back down. "I want to know what I'm walking into. I want to know who's after me and why, and what you're planning to do about it. And I want to be treated like a partner, not a liability." He studied her for a long moment, something unreadable flickering across his face. Then he nodded. "All right." Evelyn blinked. "All right? You want the truth? I'll give it to you." He moved to his desk, pulled out a file, and handed it to her. "But understand this. Once you know, there's no going back. You'll be part of this. All of it." She took the file, her hand steady. "I'm already part of it." Roman's mouth curved into something that might have been a smile. "Yeah, you are." Evelyn opened the file and started reading, and with every page she realized just how deep the water she'd fallen into really was. The file was thin but heavy. Evelyn sat down in one of the leather chairs across from Roman's desk and flipped through the pages, her eyes scanning names, dates, photographs. Most of it didn't make sense at first. Shell companies, shipping manifests, coded transactions. But then she saw a name she recognized. Marcus Dalton, her father's business partner. "Dalton's been working with the Kozlov family," Roman said, still standing by the window. "They've been trying to move into my territory for the past year. Your father didn't just owe me money. He was feeding Dalton information about my operations. He thought if he helped them take me down, they'd forgive his debts." Evelyn's head snapped up. "My father was working against you?" "Not very well," Roman said. "But yes." She stared at the photograph of Dalton, a heavy-set man with thinning hair and a smile that looked like it had been practiced in a mirror. She'd met him once, at a company dinner. He'd been loud, obnoxious, and had spent most of the night bragging about a yacht he'd just bought. "So you married me to get back at him," she said slowly. "I married you to neutralize him." Roman turned to face her. "Your father's power comes from his reputation, his business connections, his family name. By marrying you, I took all of that away from him. He can't touch you now. And without you, he has no leverage. Evelyn felt something cold settle in her chest. You used me. Yes. And now the Kozlovs know I'm here. Yes. She closed the file, her hands shaking slightly. So what happens now? Roman moved to his desk, leaning against it with his arms crossed. Now, we make sure they understand that coming after you would be a mistake. How? By making you visible. He watched her carefully. Right now they see you as a weakness, something they can exploit. But if we show them that you're not just some scared girl hiding in my house, they'll think twice. Evelyn stood, anger flaring hot in her chest. I'm not scared. I know. Roman's expression didn't change. That's why I think this will work. She wanted to throw the file at him, wanted to scream that she hadn't signed up for any of this, that she'd been dragged into his world against her will, and now she was supposed to just smile and play along. But she didn't, because the truth was, she didn't have anywhere else to go. Her father had made sure of that. What do I have to do? She asked. Roman straightened. There's a gala tomorrow night. Every major family in the city will be there. You'll come with me. We'll make an appearance together. Let people see that you're not breakable, that you're not going anywhere. And if someone tries something, then I'll handle it. His voice was flat, final. But they won't. Not in public, not yet. Evelyn didn't find that particularly comforting. She turned to leave, but Roman's voice stopped her. Evelyn. She looked back. You did the right thing, he said quietly. Coming here, saying yes. I know it doesn't feel like it, but you're safer here than you would be anywhere else. She met his gaze, searching for something, regret maybe, or guilt, but found nothing. Just that same cold, unreadable expression. Safe, she repeated. Right. She walked out before he could say anything else. Back in her room, Evelyn locked the door and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at nothing. Her mind was racing, trying to piece together everything she'd just learned. Her father had betrayed Roman. The Kozlovs wanted her dead. And Roman had married her not because he wanted to, but because it was strategic. She shouldn't have been surprised. Nothing about this marriage had ever been real, but it still stung. A knock on the door pulled her out of her thoughts. Go away, she called. It's me. Dante's voice muffled through the wood. Open up. Evelyn hesitated, then got up and unlocked the door. Dante was leaning against the frame, hands in his pockets, looking far too casual for someone who lived in a house full of criminals. I heard Roman gave you the rundown, he said. Word travels fast. It does when you're eavesdropping. He grinned. Can I come in? Do I have a choice? Not really. Evelyn stepped aside and Dante walked in, glancing around the room like he was cataloging everything. He picked up a framed photograph from the dresser, a picture of Evelyn and her grandmother taken years ago at the bakery. This her? He asked. Yes. He set it down carefully. Roman told me about the bakery, about why you said yes. Evelyn crossed her arms. And I think it's brave. Stupid maybe, but brave. He turned to face her. Most people would have run. You didn't. I didn't have a choice. Everyone has a choice. Dante sat down on the arm of a chair, still watching her. You chose to save something that mattered to you. That's not nothing. Evelyn didn't know what to say to that. Look, Dante continued, I know this whole thing is a mess. I know you didn't ask for any of it, but for what it's worth, Roman doesn't bring people into the family unless he thinks they can handle it. And if he's taking you to the gala tomorrow, that means he thinks you're strong enough to stand next to him. Or he thinks I'll make good bait. Dante laughed. Maybe, but I don't think so. He stood, heading for the door. Just don't let Vivian get in your head. She's going to test you. That's what she does. But if you push back, she'll respect you for it. And if I don't? Then she'll eat you alive. He paused in the doorway, glancing back. Oh, and one more thing. If you need help tomorrow night, if anything feels off, find me. I'll be around. Why are you being nice to me? Evelyn asked. Dante's grin widened. Because I like you. You're the first person Roman's brought home who doesn't look at him like he's some kind of god. It's refreshing. He left before she could respond. The next morning, Vivian summoned her to the sitting room. Evelyn found her perched on a velvet settee, a cup of tea balanced elegantly in one hand, looking like she'd stepped out of an oil painting. She gestured to the chair across from her without smiling. "Sit." Evelyn sat. Vivian studied her for a long moment, her gaze sharp and assessing. "You're attending the gala tonight." "I know." "Then you'll need to look the part." She set down her teacup. "I've arranged for a stylist to come this afternoon. Hair, makeup, wardrobe. You'll be ready by 6. I can dress myself." "I'm sure you can," Vivian said coolly, "but this isn't about dressing yourself. This is about representing this family, and right now you look like a girl who wandered in off the street." Evelyn's jaw tightened. "Thanks. I'm not trying to insult you, dear. I'm trying to help you survive." Vivian leaned forward slightly. "Do you have any idea what kind of people will be at that gala? The kind of women you'll be standing next to?" "I can handle myself." "Can you?" Vivian's smile was razor thin. "Because from where I'm sitting, you're a baker's granddaughter who got left at the altar and then married into a world you know nothing about. Those women will see that. They'll smell it on you, and they will tear you apart." Evelyn forced herself to stay calm. "Then I'll learn fast." Vivian's expression shifted, just slightly. Something that might have been approval flickered in her eyes. "Good. The stylist will be here at 2. She stood, smoothing her skirt, and walked toward the door. Then she paused, glancing back. "One more thing. Roman doesn't bring women to these events. Ever. The fact that he's bringing you means something. Don't embarrass him." "I won't." "See that you don't." The stylist arrived exactly at 2, along with an assistant, 3 rolling racks of dresses, and enough makeup to stock a department store. Evelyn stood in the center of her room while they circled her like vultures, pulling at her hair, holding fabrics up to her skin, murmuring to each other in low voices. "This one," the stylist finally said, pulling a dress from the rack. It was black. Sleek, floor-length, with a neckline that dipped lower than anything Evelyn had ever worn. The fabric shimmered faintly in the light, and when the stylist held it up, Evelyn realized it would fit like a second skin. "I can't wear that," she said. "You can, and you will." The stylist, a tall, angular woman named Celeste, gave her a look that brooked no argument. "Trust me, this is the one." 2 hours later, Evelyn barely recognized herself. Her hair had been swept up into something elegant and complicated, with a few loose strands framing her face. Her makeup was dramatic, dark eyes, red lips, and the dress fit exactly the way Celeste had promised. It hugged every curve, made her look taller, stronger, like someone who belonged in Roman's world. She stared at her reflection and felt a strange mix of fear and power. A knock on the door. "It's time," Roman's voice called. Evelyn took a breath, smoothed down the dress, and opened the door. Roman was standing in the hallway, dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit, and for the first time since she'd met him, he looked genuinely surprised. His eyes moved over her slowly, taking in every detail, and something shifted in his expression. "You look—" He stopped, seeming to catch himself. "Good. You look good." "Thanks," Evelyn said, trying to ignore the way her heart was racing. He offered her his arm. "Ready?" "No." "Good. Let's go." The gala was being held at the Whitmore Hotel, a historic building downtown with marble columns, crystal chandeliers, and enough security to guard a head of state. Roman's car pulled up to the entrance, and Evelyn could see photographers lined up along the red carpet, cameras flashing. "Smile," Roman murmured as the driver opened the door. "And stay close." They stepped out together, and immediately the cameras went wild. Evelyn forced herself to keep her head up, to smile like this was normal, like she hadn't spent the last 3 weeks of her life in complete chaos. Roman's hand was firm on her lower back, guiding her forward, and she focused on that, on the solidness of him, the quiet confidence that radiated from him like heat. They made it inside without incident. The ballroom was massive, filled with round tables draped in white linen, centerpieces of white roses, and more chandeliers than Evelyn could count. People milled around in clusters, the men in tuxedos, the women in gowns that probably cost more than Evelyn's car. Everyone looked polished, untouchable, like they'd been born into wealth and never questioned it. "Stay with me," Roman said quietly, his hand still on her back. They moved through the crowd, and Evelyn could feel the stares. People were watching them, whispering behind champagne flutes, their eyes following her every move. She tried not to let it bother her, tried to remember what Vivian had said. Don't embarrass him. A man approached them, older, with silver hair and a practiced smile. "Roman, it's been too long." "Harrison." Roman shook his hand. "This is my wife, Evelyn." Harrison's eyes flicked to her, and Evelyn saw the calculation there, the assessment. "A pleasure. I didn't realize you'd gotten married." "It was a private ceremony," Roman said smoothly. "I see." Harrison's smile widened. "Well, congratulations, she's lovely." He moved on, and another person took his place. Then another, and another. Roman introduced her to so many people that their names blurred together, and Evelyn smiled and nodded and said all the right things, even though her face was starting to hurt. Finally, they found a quiet corner near the bar, and Roman handed her a glass of champagne. "You're doing well," he said. "I feel like a show dog." "You look like a queen." Evelyn glanced at him, startled, but his expression was unreadable again. "Roman Vale." A new voice, cold and amused. "I was wondering when you'd show your face." Evelyn turned and found herself looking at a man in his 50s, broad-shouldered, with pale eyes and a scar running down the side of his jaw. He was flanked by two younger men who looked like they'd been carved out of stone. Roman's posture shifted. Subtle, but Evelyn felt it. "Kozlov." The man, Kozlov, smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "I heard you got married. I had to see it for myself." His gaze slid to Evelyn. "And this must be the bride, Evelyn Wexler. Or should I say, Evelyn Vale?" Evelyn met his gaze and didn't flinch. "That's right." "Charming." Kozlov's smile widened. "Tell me, how does it feel to go from one failed wedding to another in less than a month?" Roman stepped forward. Bussin' forward, but Evelyn spoke before he could. "Better than it would feel to lose a shipping yard to the feds. But I guess we all handle disappointment differently." The smile dropped from Kozlov's face. Roman's hand tightened on her waist, a warning, or maybe approval, but Evelyn didn't look away. Kozlov stared at her for a long, dangerous moment. Then he laughed. "She's got teeth. I like that." He turned to Roman. "You better keep a close eye on this one. Wouldn't want anything to happen to her." "Nothing's going to happen to her," Roman said quietly. "Of course not." Kozlov's eyes glittered. "Enjoy your evening." He walked away, his men trailing behind him, and Evelyn let out a breath she didn't realize she'd been holding. "What the hell was that?" she whispered. "A warning!" Roman's jaw was tight. "He just told me he's coming after you." "Then maybe we should leave." "No." Roman's voice was firm. "We stay. We finish this night, and we show him that you're not afraid." "I am afraid." "I know." He looked down at her, and for the first time she saw something softer in his eyes. "But you're still here. That's what matters." They stayed for another hour. Roman kept her close, introducing her to more people, making sure everyone saw them together. Evelyn played her part, smiling and laughing and pretending like her entire world wasn't teetering on the edge of collapse. And then, just as they were about to leave, Dante appeared at her elbow. "We have a problem," he said quietly. Roman's expression darkened. "What kind of problem?" "The kind that's waiting for you in the parking garage." Roman swore under his breath. He turned to Evelyn. "Stay with Dante." "What? No. Stay with Dante," he repeated, and then he was gone, disappearing into the crowd before she could argue. Dante grabbed her arm, pulling her toward a side exit. "Come on!" "What's happening?" "Kozlov's men. They're outside." Evelyn's stomach dropped. "How many?" "Enough." They slipped out through a service hallway, Dante moving fast, his hand tight on her wrist. They reached a stairwell, and Dante pushed her inside, locking the door behind them. "Stay here," he said. "Where are you going?" "To help my brother." He pulled a gun from his jacket, checking the clip, and Evelyn's eyes went wide. "Dante?" "I'll be back." He looked at her, his expression serious for once. "Don't open this door for anyone but me or Roman. Understand?" She nodded, her heart hammering. Dante left, and Evelyn was alone. She pressed her back against the wall, trying to breathe, trying not to panic. She could hear muffled sounds from outside. Shouts, maybe, or footsteps, but she couldn't tell. The stairwell was cold, silent, and she felt like she was trapped in a nightmare. Minutes passed, or maybe hours. She couldn't tell. And then the door burst open. Evelyn jumped, her heart stopping, but it was Roman. His jacket was gone, his shirt was torn, and there was blood on his knuckles. "Are you hurt?" he asked immediately. "No. Are you?" "I'm fine." He reached for her, pulling her close, and for a moment they just stood there, his arms around her, her face pressed against his chest. She could feel his heart pounding, could smell smoke and cologne and something metallic. "What happened?" she whispered. "It's handled." He pulled back, looking down at her. "We need to go. Now." They left through a back exit, Roman's hand never leaving hers. The car was waiting, and they climbed in, the driver pulling away from the hotel before the door was even fully closed. Evelyn sat in silence, her hands shaking, her mind racing. Roman watched her, his expression unreadable. "I'm sorry." She looked at him. "For what?" "For putting you in danger." "You didn't put me in danger. My father did." She swallowed hard. "And I'm still here." Roman's jaw tightened. Then he reached over and took her hand, his grip firm and steady. They didn't let go the entire ride home. They didn't speak the rest of the way home. Roman kept his hand wrapped around hers, his thumb moving in slow circles against her palm, and Evelyn focused on that instead of the blood on his knuckles, or the way her entire body was still shaking. When they pulled through the gates of the estate, she expected him to let go, to retreat back into that cold distance he wore like armor. But he didn't. He helped her out of the car, kept his hand on her lower back as they walked inside, and only released her when they reached the hallway outside her room. "Get some sleep," he said quietly. Evelyn looked at him, really looked at him, and saw exhaustion behind his eyes. "Are you going to tell me what happened back there?" "Tomorrow." "Roman—" "Tomorrow, Evelyn." His voice was firm but not unkind. "I promise." She wanted to argue, wanted to demand answers right then, but she was too tired, too wrung out. So she nodded and went inside, closing the door behind her. She didn't sleep. She lay in bed staring at the ceiling, replaying the night over and over, Kozlov's threat, the way Roman had looked when he came back for her, the feel of his hand in hers. She'd spent weeks in this house feeling like a ghost, like she didn't belong. But tonight something had shifted. Roman had protected her. He'd come back for her. And that meant something, even if she didn't know what yet. When morning finally came, Evelyn got dressed and went downstairs. She found Roman in his study, sitting behind his desk with a cup of coffee and a tablet in front of him. He looked up when she walked in. "You're up early," he said. "I didn't sleep." "Neither did I." He set down the tablet. "Sit." Evelyn sat, folding her hands in her lap. "So, are you going to tell me what happened?" Roman leaned back in his chair, studying her. "Kozlov sent 4 men to the parking garage. They were waiting for us. Dante and I dealt with them." "Dealt with them how?" "You don't need to know the details." "Yes, I do." Evelyn's voice was steady. "You said you'd treat me like a partner. That means not hiding things from me." Roman was quiet for a moment. Then he sighed. "2 of them are in the hospital. The other 2 won't be a problem anymore." Evelyn's stomach twisted, but she forced herself to stay calm. "And Kozlov?" "He's testing me, seeing how far he can push before I push back." Roman's jaw tightened. "But he made a mistake last night. He threatened you in public, in front of witnesses. That means everyone in the city knows he's coming after my wife. And if I don't respond, I look weak. So what are you going to do?" "I'm going to remind him why people don't cross me." Roman stood, walking to the window. "But first we need to deal with the other problem." Evelyn frowned. "What other problem?" "Your father." She felt her blood go cold. "What about him?" Roman turned to face her. "He's been trying to reach you. Called the house 6 times yesterday. Left messages with Margaret. He wants to see you." "No." "Evelyn, I said no." She stood, anger flaring hot in her chest. "He sold me, Roman. He threatened to destroy the only thing I have left of my family if I didn't marry you. I don't owe him anything." I'm not saying you owe him anything, Roman said carefully, but he's going to keep pushing, and if we ignore him, he'll escalate. We need to deal with this now, on our terms. Evelyn crossed her arms. What do you suggest? Let him come here. Let him say whatever he wants to say, and then we shut him down. Permanently. She hated that it made sense, hated that Roman was right, but she nodded anyway. Fine. Set it up. Her father arrived 2 hours later, driving a car that was too expensive for someone who claimed to be in debt. Evelyn watched from the window of the sitting room as he got out, straightened his tie, and walked toward the front door like he owned the place. Her hands curled into fists at her sides. Roman appeared beside her, his presence solid and grounding. You don't have to do this if you're not ready. I'm ready. If he says anything that crosses a line, I'll remove him myself. Evelyn glanced at him. You'd really throw my father out of your house? Without hesitation. Something warm and dangerous unfurled in her chest. She didn't have time to examine it before Margaret appeared in the doorway. Mr. Wexler is here, she said quietly. Show him in, Roman said. A moment later, her father walked into the room, his eyes sweeping over the space before landing on Evelyn. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. Evelyn, you look well. She didn't return the smile. What do you want? Is that any way to greet your father? He moved closer, but Roman stepped between them, a silent wall. You have 5 minutes, Roman said coldly. Say what you came to say. Her father's smile tightened. I wanted to check on my daughter, make sure she's being treated well. She's fine, Evelyn said flatly. You can leave now. Evelyn, I know you're angry. Angry? She laughed, the sound bitter. I'm not angry. I'm done. You threatened me, sold me, and then acted like you were doing me a favor. So whatever you came here to say, I don't want to hear it. Her father's expression hardened. You're being dramatic. I did what I had to do to protect this family. You did what you had to do to save yourself, Evelyn shot back. Don't pretend this was ever about me. I gave you a roof over your head. I paid for your education. I kept you safe. You kept me trapped. Evelyn's voice cracked, but she didn't look away. And the second I became useful, you traded me like I was nothing. Her father opened his mouth to respond, but Roman spoke first. Your time is up. I'm not finished. Yes, you are. Roman's voice was deadly quiet. And if you contact my wife again, if you so much as drive past this house, I will make sure you regret it. Do you understand me? Her father's face flushed red. You can't threaten me. That wasn't a threat. That was a promise. Roman stepped closer, and her father actually flinched. Now get out. For a moment, Evelyn thought her father might argue, but then he looked at Roman's face, saw whatever was there, and turned on his heel. He walked out without another word, and Evelyn heard the front door slam a moment later. She stood there, shaking, her nails digging into her palms. Roman turned to her. Are you all right? I don't know. Her voice came out small, broken. I thought I'd feel better, telling him off. But I just feel empty. She looked at him, surprised. Yeah. It doesn't go away immediately, Roman said quietly. But it gets easier. How do you know? Because I've done it. He hesitated, then added, My father wasn't a good man either. Evelyn wanted to ask more, wanted to know what that meant, but before she could, Dante burst into the room. We've got a problem, he said, his face grim. Roman's expression hardened. What now? Someone just dropped off a package at the gate. No return address. Security opened it. Dante glanced at Evelyn, then back at Roman. It's photos. Of Evelyn. Evelyn's stomach dropped. What kind of photos? Dante hesitated. Surveillance. You at the bakery. You getting coffee downtown. You leaving the house yesterday morning. He pulled out his phone, swiping through images, and handed it to Roman. There's at least 30 of them. Someone's been following her for weeks. Roman's jaw clenched as he looked at the phone. Then he handed it to Evelyn. She scrolled through the photos, her hands trembling. They were all of her, walking down the street, getting into her car, standing at the window of her old apartment. Some of them were recent, taken after the wedding, but others were older, weeks old, maybe even months. Someone's been watching me since before the wedding, she whispered. since before Adrian left, Roman said quietly. Evelyn's head snapped up. You think Adrian was involved in this? I don't know yet. Roman took the phone back, his expression unreadable. But I'm going to find out. Over the next 3 days, Roman barely left his study. Evelyn saw him in passing, late at night when he came upstairs, early in the morning when he left again, but he didn't talk to her about what he was doing. Dante told her Roman was pulling every string he had, calling in favors, digging into Adrian's life with the kind of focus that bordered on obsession. Evelyn tried to stay busy. She explored the estate, read books from the library, avoided Vivian as much as possible. But every time she closed her eyes, she saw those photos, saw herself walking through her life completely unaware that someone was watching, waiting, planning. On the 4th day, Roman found her in the garden. She was sitting on a stone bench near the rose beds, her arms wrapped around herself, when she heard footsteps behind her. She didn't turn around. I know who sent the photos, Roman said. Evelyn's breath caught. Who? Adrian, but he wasn't working alone. Roman sat down beside her, and when she finally looked at him, she saw exhaustion etched into every line of his face. Your cousin Celine was helping him. Evelyn felt like she'd been slapped. Celine? But she was one of my bridesmaids. She helped me pick out the dress. She stopped, her throat closing. Why? Jealousy, from what I can tell. And money. Roman pulled out a folder, handing it to her. Adrian's been in debt for years. Gambling, bad investments, living beyond his means. Celine's been feeding him information about you, your schedule, your routines, where you'd be vulnerable. They were working with Kozlov. The plan was to use you to get to me. Evelyn opened the folder with shaking hands. Inside were bank statements, emails, text messages, all proof, all damning. Adrian never loved me, she said quietly. No, he didn't. He was using me from the beginning. Yes. She closed the folder, her hands trembling. Where is he now? I don't know yet, but I will. Roman's voice was cold, dangerous. And when I find him, I'll make sure he answers for what he did. Evelyn looked at him. I want to be there. Evelyn, I want to be there, she repeated, her voice steady. He humiliated me. He made me feel like I wasn't enough. And now I find out it was all a lie. I deserve to see his face when you bring him down. Roman studied her for a long moment. Then he nodded. All right. 2 days later, Roman's men found Adrian. He was hiding in a motel outside the city, drinking cheap whiskey and calling anyone who might help him disappear. Roman got the call at 3 a.m, and by 4, they were in the car. Evelyn sat in the back seat, her heart pounding, her hands clenched in her lap. Dante was driving, his expression grim, and Roman sat beside her, silent and focused. When they pulled up to the motel, Evelyn saw 2 black SUVs already parked outside. Roman's men. She recognized a few of them from the house. Stay in the car, Roman said. No. Evelyn, I'm coming with you. She met his gaze, unflinching. You promised. Roman's jaw tightened. Then he nodded. Stay behind me. They got out, and Evelyn followed Roman across the parking lot. One of his men was waiting by the door to room 12, and he nodded when Roman approached. He's inside, alone. Good. Roman glanced at Evelyn. Ready? She nodded, even though her heart was racing so fast she thought it might explode. Roman kicked the door open. Inside, Adrian was sitting on the edge of the bed, his head in his hands. He looked up when they walked in, and for a moment he just stared. Then he saw Evelyn, and his face went pale. Evelyn, he said, his voice hoarse. I can explain. Shut up, Roman said coldly. Adrian's mouth snapped shut. Evelyn stepped forward, her hands shaking. You left me at the altar, in front of everyone. You made me feel like I wasn't good enough, like I'd done something wrong. Her voice cracked, but she kept going. And it was all a lie. You were using me, you and Celine. Adrian looked at the floor. I didn't have a choice. Everyone has a choice, Evelyn said, echoing Dante's words. You chose to hurt me. You chose to put me in danger, and now you're going to pay for it. I'm sorry. I don't care. Evelyn's voice was hard, cold. I don't care if you're sorry. I don't care if you regret it. You're done, Adrian. You're nothing. Adrian looked at Roman, desperation in his eyes. Please. I'll disappear. You'll never see me again. Just let me go. Roman didn't even blink. No. Please. You threatened my wife. You worked with people who wanted her dead. And you thought you could just walk away? Roman stepped closer, and Adrian shrank back. You're going to tell me everything. Every meeting with Kozlov, every plan, every person involved, and then we'll decide what happens to you. Adrian's face crumpled. Okay, I'll tell you everything. Just don't talk, Roman said. And Adrian did. He told them everything. How Celine had approached him 6 months ago with an offer from Kozlov. How they'd planned to use Evelyn to get close to Roman, to feed information, to create weaknesses. How Adrian was supposed to marry her, gain her trust, and then disappear at the perfect moment to destabilize her emotionally. How Celine had taken the photos, tracked her movements, handed everything over to Kozlov's people. By the time he finished, Evelyn felt sick. Where's Celine now? Roman asked. I don't know. She stopped answering my calls 3 days ago. Adrian looked at Evelyn, his eyes red. I really am sorry, for what it's worth. It's worth nothing, Evelyn said flatly. Roman turned to his men. Take him. I'll deal with him later. They dragged Adrian out, and Evelyn stood there, shaking, trying to process everything she'd just heard. Roman stepped in front of her, his hands on her shoulders. Are you all right? No? She looked up at him. But I will be. Roman's expression softened, just slightly. Come on, let's go home. They left the motel, but the night wasn't over yet. On the drive back, Roman made a phone call, his voice low and clipped, and when they pulled up to the estate, there were 2 more cars waiting. Evelyn recognized one of them. It was Celine's. Roman's men had found her trying to board a flight to Europe. They'd brought her straight to the house, and now she was sitting in Roman's study, flanked by 2 very large, very serious men. When Evelyn walked in, Celine's head snapped up. Her eyes went wide. Evelyn? Don't! Evelyn's voice was ice. Don't say my name. Don't apologize. Don't pretend you care. Celine's face crumpled. I didn't mean for it to go this far. You took photos of me. You gave them to people who wanted me dead. You helped Adrian humiliate me in front of everyone I know. Evelyn stepped closer, her hands shaking with rage. You were supposed to be my family. I was jealous, okay? Celine's voice rose, desperate. You always had everything. Your grandmother loved you more. Your mom left you the bakery. Everyone thought you were so perfect. Perfect? Evelyn laughed, the sound bitter. I was abandoned at the altar. I was sold by my father. I've spent the last month terrified for my life, but sure, Celine, I had everything. Celine looked at Roman. Please, I'll disappear. I'll go to Europe. You'll never hear from me again. No, Roman said coldly. You'll go to the authorities. You'll confess to everything, and you'll name every single person you worked with. Kozlov, his men, anyone else involved. They'll kill me. That's not my problem. Roman's voice was flat. You have 2 choices. Cooperate, and I'll make sure you're protected. Refuse, and I'll hand you over to Kozlov myself. Decide. Celine stared at him, tears streaming down her face. Then she nodded. I'll cooperate. Smart. Roman gestured to his men. Take her. They led Celine out, and Evelyn stood there, feeling like the ground had dropped out from under her. It's over, Roman said quietly. Is it? Evelyn looked at him. Adrian and Celine are done, but Kozlov's still out there. Not for long. Roman's jaw tightened. He made a mistake going after you, and now I'm going to make him regret it. Evelyn believed him. 3 days later, news broke that Kozlov's shipping operation had been raided by federal agents. Half his crew was arrested, millions of dollars in illegal goods seized, and Kozlov himself disappeared. Rumors said he'd fled the country. Others said Roman had made sure he wouldn't be a problem anymore. Evelyn didn't ask. She wasn't sure she wanted to know. What she did know was that the threats stopped. The surveillance ended, and for the first time since the wedding, she felt like she could breathe. She was in the kitchen one morning making coffee when Roman walked in. He looked tired, but calmer than she'd seen him in weeks. "It's done," he said simply. Evelyn set down her mug. "Kozlov?" "He won't be coming back." She nodded slowly. "And Adrian? Celine?" "Adrian's cooperating with the authorities. He'll spend the next few years in prison. Celine's singing like a canary. She'll do time too, but less than Adrian." Roman poured himself coffee, leaning against the counter. "Your father's business is being investigated. Turns out he's been laundering money for some very unpleasant people. He's going to be tied up in court for a long time." Evelyn should have felt something. Relief, maybe, or vindication. But mostly, she just felt tired. "What about the bakery?" Roman looked at her. "What about it? You said my father would destroy it if I didn't marry you. But now he's in trouble with the law. What happens to the bakery?" "It's yours," Roman said simply. "I had the deed transferred into your name 3 days after we got married. He can't touch it." Evelyn stared at him. "You... what?" "You married me to save it, so I made sure it was safe." He shrugged, like it was nothing. "It's been sitting empty, but it's yours. You can do whatever you want with it." Evelyn felt something crack open in her chest, something that had been closed for so long she'd forgotten it was there. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because you had enough to worry about." Roman set down his coffee. "But it's over now. You're safe. The bakery's safe. And you can figure out what comes next." Evelyn crossed the room and, without thinking, wrapped her arms around him. Roman went still, then slowly his arms came up around her, holding her tight. "Thank you," she whispered. "You don't have to thank me." "Yes, I do." They stood there for a long moment, and Evelyn realized something. This man, this dangerous, complicated, impossible man, had saved her. Not just from Kozlov or Adrian or her father, but from the life she'd been trapped in, the life where she was invisible, powerless, traded like property. He'd given her a way out, and somewhere along the way, she'd stopped being afraid of him. She pulled back, looking up at him. "I want to rebuild it. The bakery." Roman's expression softened. "Then we'll rebuild it. Together?" "Together." And for the first time in a long time, Evelyn smiled. The bakery looked worse than Evelyn remembered. She stood on the sidewalk outside, staring at the boarded-up windows and the faded sign hanging crooked above the door, and felt something heavy settle in her chest. The last time she'd been here was 3 months ago, right after her grandmother's funeral. She'd locked the door, turned off the lights, and walked away because she couldn't stand to be inside a place that reminded her of everything she'd lost. Now, looking at it, she wasn't sure where to even start. Roman stood beside her, hands in his pockets, studying the building with the same focused intensity he brought to everything. "When was the last time anyone was inside?" "Before the wedding. My grandmother's lawyer came by to make sure everything was secure." Evelyn pulled the keys from her bag, the metal cold against her palm. "I haven't been back since the funeral." "Then let's see what we're working with." She unlocked the door, and the hinges creaked as it swung open. Inside, everything was exactly how she'd left it. Chairs stacked on tables, the display cases empty, a thin layer of dust covering every surface. But underneath the neglect, Evelyn could still see what it used to be. The worn wooden counters her grandmother had polished every night. The chalkboard menu on the wall still listing prices from 6 months ago. The old espresso machine that had been temperamental but produced the best coffee Evelyn had ever tasted. Roman walked through the space slowly, his footsteps echoing on the tile floor. "It's got good bones. The layout works. You'd need new equipment, fresh paint, probably new flooring in the kitchen." He paused by the counter, running his hand along the wood. "But it's salvageable." Evelyn moved to the window, looking out at the street. "My grandmother opened this place when my mom was 5. She used to say it was the only thing she ever built that was truly hers." Her voice caught. "My mom worked here every summer growing up. She taught me how to make croissants in that kitchen when I was 7. Roman came to stand beside her. "Then we'll make sure it survives." "How?" Evelyn turned to face him. "I don't have money for renovations. I don't even know if I can run a bakery by myself. My grandmother had years of experience. My mom grew up in this world. I worked here part-time in college. That's it." "So you'll learn." Roman's voice was matter-of-fact. "And you won't be doing it alone. I'll cover the renovations. You focus on the rest." I can't let you pay for everything. Yes, you can. He turned to face her fully. This place matters to you. That makes it matter to me. Let me do this. Evelyn searched his face, looking for the catch, the hidden angle, but all she saw was sincerity. It was startling how much he'd changed in the past few weeks. Or maybe he hadn't changed at all. Maybe she was just finally seeing him clearly. Okay, she said quietly. Thank you. Roman nodded. I'll have a contractor come by tomorrow to assess what needs to be done. In the meantime, make a list of everything you want to keep and everything that needs to go. Evelyn spent the rest of the day in the bakery, going through every cupboard, every drawer, every corner. She found her grandmother's recipe books, the pages stained and dog-eared from decades of use. She found her mother's apron still hanging on a hook in the kitchen, the fabric soft and faded. She found a photograph tucked behind the register, her grandmother and her mother, standing in front of the bakery on opening day, both of them smiling like they'd won the lottery. Evelyn sat on the floor in the middle of the kitchen, surrounded by memories, and cried for the first time since the funeral. She didn't hear Roman come back until he was crouching beside her, his hand on her shoulder. Hey, he said softly. You all right? Evelyn wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. Yeah, it's a lot. I know. He sat down beside her, his back against the counter. You don't have to do this all at once. Take your time. I don't have time. The longer this place sits empty, the harder it'll be to bring it back. She looked at him. Did the contractor say he could come tomorrow? He'll be here at 9. Good. Evelyn took a shaky breath. I want to start as soon as possible. The contractor's name was Mike, and he was a broad-shouldered man in his 50s with a no-nonsense attitude and a clipboard that never left his hand. He walked through the bakery making notes, tapping walls, checking pipes, and muttering to himself. After an hour, he sat down with Evelyn and Roman at one of the tables and laid out his assessment. The good news is the structure's solid. No major issues with the foundation or the roof. The bad news is everything inside needs work. Plumbing's outdated, electrical needs to be brought up to code, and the kitchen equipment is shot. He flipped through his notes. You're looking at a full gut and remodel, 6 to 8 weeks, minimum. Evelyn's stomach sank. How much? Mike named a figure that made her dizzy. Roman didn't even blink. When can you start? I can have a crew here Monday. Do it. Roman stood, shaking Mike's hand. Send the invoices to my office. Mike left, and Evelyn sat there staring at the table. That's a lot of money. I've spent more on less important things. Roman sat back down across from her. Stop worrying about the money. Focus on what you want this place to be. I want it to be what it was, a neighborhood bakery, somewhere people come because the food is good and the atmosphere is warm and it feels like home. Evelyn paused. But I also want it to be mine, not just a copy of what my grandmother built. Does that make sense? Perfect sense. Roman leaned back in his chair. So what would you change? Evelyn thought about it. I'd expand the menu. My grandmother stuck to the classics, croissants, bread, pastries. But I want to try new things, seasonal specials, maybe savory options for lunch, and I want to open earlier, catch the morning commuter crowd. She warmed to the idea, her mind racing. And I want to use the space differently. More seating. Maybe a small stage in the corner for open mic nights or live music. Roman smiled. It was a real smile, not the cold, calculated one he used in business meetings. Then that's what we'll do. Over the next 6 weeks, the bakery transformed. Evelyn was there every day, watching the crew tear out old equipment and install new ovens, refinish the floors, repaint the walls in soft, warm colors that reminded her of her grandmother's kitchen. She worked with Roman to choose furniture, sturdy tables and mismatched chairs that gave the place a cozy, lived-in feel. She ordered dishes and glassware, picked out light fixtures, and spent hours going through her grandmother's recipe books, deciding which ones to keep and which ones to adapt. Roman was there too, more often than she expected. He'd show up in the mornings with coffee, roll up his sleeves, and help however he could. He wasn't much of a cook, but he was good at problem solving, at seeing potential issues before they became disasters. And he never complained, never acted like this was beneath him, even when he was covered in sawdust and paint. One afternoon, Evelyn found him in the kitchen, staring at the new ovens with a frown. "What's wrong?" she asked. "Nothing. Just thinking. He glanced at her. Have you thought about hiring help? You can't run this place alone. I know, I've been putting out ads, but I haven't had much time to do interviews. She wiped her hands on her jeans. Why? You know someone? Maybe. Roman pulled out his phone, scrolling through his contacts. There's a woman who used to work at one of my restaurants. Maria. She's got 20 years of experience, and she's been looking for something closer to home. I think she'd be a good fit. You own restaurants? A few. Legitimate ones, he added, catching her look. I'm not just a criminal, Evelyn. She felt her face heat. I didn't mean, yes, you did. It's fine. He pocketed his phone. I'll give Maria your number. Set up an interview. Maria turned out to be exactly what Evelyn needed. She was in her mid-40s, warm but efficient, with a laugh that filled the room and a work ethic that put everyone else to shame. She knew her way around a kitchen, had ideas for the menu, and wasn't afraid to tell Evelyn when something wasn't working. Within a week, Evelyn couldn't imagine running the bakery without her. Dante stopped by one afternoon, leaning against the counter while Evelyn tested a new recipe for lemon tarts. So this is what you've been doing, he said, looking around. I thought you were avoiding the house. I wasn't avoiding the house. Evelyn pulled the tarts from the oven, setting them on the cooling rack. I've been busy. Clearly, Dante snagged a tart, ignoring her protest, and took a bite. His eyes widened. Okay, that's really good. Don't sound so surprised. I'm not surprised. I'm impressed. He finished the tart and reached for another. Roman talks about this place all the time. I think he's more excited about it than you are. Evelyn paused, glancing at him. He talks about it? Constantly. It's actually kind of annoying, Dante grinned, but also kind of cute, in a weird Roman way. He's proud of you. He said that? He didn't have to, I can tell. Dante's expression turned serious. You know he's different around you, right? Like, actually different. I've known him my whole life, and I've never seen him like this. Evelyn didn't know what to say to that. Just don't break his heart, okay? Dante said. He's better at hiding it than most people, but he's not invincible. I'm not going to break his heart, Evelyn said quietly. I don't even know if he has one. He does. He just doesn't show it to most people. Dante straightened, brushing crumbs off his shirt. Anyway, I should go. But seriously, these tarts are amazing. You're going to kill it when this place opens. He left, and Evelyn stood there, thinking about what he'd said. Roman was different around her. She'd noticed it too, in small ways. The way he listened when she talked about the bakery, like every word mattered. The way he'd started coming home earlier, joining her for dinner instead of locking himself in his study. The way he looked at her sometimes, like he was trying to figure out a puzzle he couldn't quite solve. And she was different around him too. She didn't flinch when he walked into a room anymore. She didn't feel like a prisoner in his house. Somewhere along the way, the Vale estate had started to feel less like a cage and more like a home. She didn't know when it had happened, but it had. 2 weeks before the bakery was set to open, Evelyn woke up in the middle of the night to the sound of shattering glass. She sat up in bed, her heart pounding, and listened. Silence. Then footsteps. Heavy, deliberate, coming from downstairs. She grabbed her phone and crept to the door, opening it slowly. The hallway was dark, but she could see light spilling up from the first floor. She started down the stairs, staying close to the wall, her pulse racing. When she reached the bottom, she saw it. The front windows had been smashed. Glass littered the floor, glittering in the moonlight. And standing in the middle of the foyer, surrounded by Roman's men, was a man Evelyn didn't recognize. He was bleeding from a cut on his forehead, his hands zip-tied behind his back, and he was glaring at Roman like he wanted to kill him. Roman stood a few feet away, his expression cold and dangerous. I asked you a question. The man spat blood onto the floor. Go to hell! Roman moved so fast Evelyn barely saw it. 1 second he was standing still, the next he had the man by the throat, slamming him against the wall. Who sent you? The man choked, his face turning red. You're finished, Vale. You think you've won, but you haven't. Who sent you? Kozlov's brother. Roman let go, and the man collapsed to the floor, gasping for air. Roman turned to his men. Get him out of here. I'll deal with him later. They dragged the man out, and Roman finally noticed Evelyn standing on the stairs. How long have you been there? He asked. Long enough. She came down the rest of the way, careful to avoid the broken glass. Kozlov's brother? Apparently he's been planning revenge since Kozlov disappeared. Roman's jaw tightened. I thought we dealt with all of them. I was wrong. Is he going to come after me? He already tried. Roman gestured to the broken windows. This was a warning. Next time, it'll be worse. Evelyn felt cold. So what do we do? We end this. Permanently. Roman pulled out his phone, making a call. I'm not letting him get close to you again. The next 48 hours were a blur. Roman disappeared for most of it, taking Dante and half his men with him. Evelyn stayed at the house, under guard, while Vivian hovered nearby with a look of grim satisfaction. This is what happens when you marry into this family, Vivian said one evening, pouring herself a glass of wine. Violence follows us, always. I'm aware, Evelyn said flatly. Are you? Vivian took a sip. Because you've been acting like this is some kind of fairy tale. Like Roman is your knight in shining armor. But he's not. He's a criminal. A dangerous man. And sooner or later, that will catch up to both of you. Evelyn met her gaze. If you're trying to scare me, it's not working. I'm trying to prepare you. Vivian's expression softened just slightly. I was young once too. I thought I could change my husband. Thought love would be enough. But it wasn't. And by the time I realized that, it was too late to leave. I'm not you, Evelyn said quietly. No, you're not. Vivian studied her for a long moment. You're stronger than I was. Maybe that'll be enough. When Roman finally came home, it was 3 a.m. Evelyn was awake, sitting in the library with a book she wasn't reading when he walked in. He looked exhausted, his shirt stained with something she didn't want to identify, but his eyes were clear. It's done, he said simply. Evelyn set down the book. Kozlov's brother? Won't be a problem anymore. Roman sat down beside her, leaning back against the couch. Neither will anyone else in his organization. I made sure of it. How? You don't want to know. She probably didn't, but she also didn't look away. Are we safe now? Yes. Roman turned to face her. I promise you, Evelyn. No one else is coming after you. Not now. Not ever. Evelyn believed him. She reached over, taking his hand, and they sat there in silence for a long time. The bakery opened on a Saturday morning in early October. Evelyn had spent the night before baking croissants, sourdough loaves, lemon tarts, chocolate eclairs, everything she'd practiced over the past weeks. Maria had arrived at 4 a.m. to help, and together they'd filled the display cases until they were overflowing. The smell of fresh bread and butter filled the space, warm and inviting, and when Evelyn flipped the sign on the door from closed to open, she felt something settle in her chest. This was real. She'd done it. The first customer was an older woman who'd lived in the neighborhood for 40 years. She took one look at the bakery, tears filling her eyes, and said, Your grandmother would be so proud. By noon, there was a line out the door. Roman showed up around 1, dressed in a suit like he'd just come from a meeting, and waited patiently in line until he reached the counter. Evelyn was covered in flour, her hair falling out of its bun, but she smiled when she saw him. What can I get you? She asked. Coffee, black, and one of those lemon tarts Dante won't stop talking about. She poured his coffee and plated the tart, sliding them across the counter. On the house. I'm paying. Roman pulled out his wallet, but Evelyn waved him off. You've already paid enough. This one's free. Roman looked at her for a long moment. Then he smiled, that real, unguarded smile that made her heart skip. Thank you. He found a seat in the corner and stayed for an hour, watching her work, and Evelyn felt like she was floating. That night, after the bakery closed and the last customer had left, Evelyn and Maria cleaned up in comfortable silence. When everything was done, Evelyn locked the door and stood on the sidewalk, looking at the sign above the entrance. Her grandmother's name was still there, in the same curling script it had always been. But underneath, in smaller letters, was something new. An Evelyn Wexler veil. Roman had insisted on it, said it was her bakery now, and people should know it. Evelyn stared at her name, at the legacy she was carrying forward, and felt something fierce and bright bloom in her chest. She wasn't broken. She wasn't a victim. She was a woman who'd survived betrayal, danger, and loss, and had come out the other side stronger. And she'd done it with a man she'd never expected to love standing beside her. When she got home that night, Roman was waiting in the kitchen. He'd opened a bottle of wine, poured 2 glasses, and was leaning against the counter with that same focused intensity he always had. "How'd it go?" he asked. "Better than I expected. We sold out of almost everything by 3. Evelyn took the glass he offered. "Maria thinks we should expand the menu even more. Add sandwiches, maybe some salads." "Sounds good." Roman clinked his glass against hers. "To new beginnings." "To new beginnings," Evelyn echoed. They drank, and Evelyn felt the exhaustion of the day catch up to her all at once. She set down her glass, leaning against the counter beside him. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For everything. For the bakery, for keeping me safe, for not giving up on me." Roman set down his own glass, turning to face her fully. "I didn't do it because I felt obligated. I did it because I wanted to." "Why?" "Because somewhere along the way you stopped being a business transaction and started being someone I couldn't imagine losing." His voice was low, rough. "I know this wasn't the marriage you wanted. I know I'm not the man you would have chosen. But I need you to know that this, us, it's real for me now." Evelyn's breath caught. "Roman, you don't have to say anything." He reached up, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "I just needed you to know." But Evelyn did have something to say. She stepped closer, closing the distance between them, and kissed him. Roman went still for half a second. Then his arms came around her, pulling her close, and he kissed her back with a kind of desperate intensity that made her knees weak. When they finally broke apart, both of them breathless, Evelyn rested her forehead against his. "It's real for me too," she whispered. Roman's arms tightened around her. "Good." They stood there for a long time, holding each other in the quiet kitchen, and Evelyn realized something. She'd walked into this marriage terrified, furious, expecting nothing but pain. But somehow, against all odds, she'd found something she hadn't been looking for. She'd found home. The weeks after that night in the kitchen changed everything. Not in some dramatic, cinematic way. There was no grand declaration, no sweeping romantic gesture, just a slow, steady shift in the way they moved around each other. Roman started coming to the bakery every morning before work, sitting in the corner with his coffee while Evelyn prepped for the day. She started waiting up for him at night, no matter how late he came home, and they'd sit in the kitchen talking about nothing and everything until exhaustion pulled them both upstairs. They still had separate rooms, but more often than not, Evelyn would wake up to find Roman asleep in the chair by her window, like he couldn't stand to be too far away. It was small, quiet, real. And then, on a Tuesday morning 3 weeks later, everything fell apart again. Evelyn was at the bakery pulling a tray of croissants from the oven when Roman called. His voice was tight, controlled, which meant something was very wrong. "Where are you?" he asked. "At the bakery." "Why?" "What's going on?" "Stay there. Don't leave. I'm sending Dante to pick you up." Evelyn's stomach dropped. "Roman, you're scaring me." "Just stay there. I'll explain when I see you." He hung up before she could respond. Maria appeared in the doorway, concern etched on her face. "Everything okay?" "I don't know." Evelyn set down the tray, her hands shaking. "I have to go. Can you handle things here?" "Of course. Go." Dante arrived 10 minutes later, driving faster than necessary, and wouldn't answer any of Evelyn's questions during the ride back to the estate. When they pulled through the gates, she saw 3 black SUVs parked in the driveway, and her pulse kicked into overdrive. Roman was in his study, standing by the window with his phone pressed to his ear. He turned when she walked in, and the look on his face made her blood run cold. "I'll call you back," he said into the phone, then hung up. "Close the door." Evelyn did. "What's happening?" "There's been a complication." Roman moved to his desk, pulling up something on his computer. "One of Kozlov's old partners surfaced this morning, Viktor Sokolov. He's been operating out of Eastern Europe for the past year, and apparently he just found out what happened to Kozlov and his brother. And he's decided to finish what they started." Roman turned the screen toward her. On it was a photograph, grainy, taken from a distance, of Evelyn standing outside the bakery. The timestamp was from yesterday. "He's been watching you. And this morning, he sent me a message. He's coming for you, tonight. Evelyn felt the room tilt. How does he even know where I am? Someone talked. One of Kozlov's men who got picked up in the raids probably cut a deal, gave up information. Roman's jaw was tight. It doesn't matter how. What matters is we have less than 12 hours to get you somewhere safe. Safe? Roman, I can't just disappear. You can, and you will. His voice was hard. I'm not negotiating this, Evelyn. Sokolov doesn't make threats. He acts. And if he gets his hands on you... He stopped, his hands curling into fists. I won't let that happen. So what's the plan? Evelyn forced herself to stay calm. You hide me somewhere while you deal with him? Essentially, yes. No. Roman's head snapped up. What? I said no. Evelyn crossed her arms. I'm not running. I'm not hiding. Every time someone comes after me, you handle it. You protect me, and I'm grateful for that. But I'm not a child, Roman. I'm your wife, and I'm done being the person everyone else has to save. This isn't about pride. It's not about pride. It's about me being part of this. She stepped closer. You said you'd treat me like a partner, so treat me like one. Let me help. Roman stared at her, something warring in his expression. You don't know what you're asking. Yes, I do. I'm asking to stop being a bystander in my own life. The silence stretched between them, heavy and charged. Then Roman exhaled slowly. All right, but you do exactly what I say. No arguments, no going rogue. Understood? Understood. He moved to the wall behind his desk, pressing something that made a section swing open to reveal a hidden safe. Inside were documents, cash, and several guns. Roman pulled out 2 handguns, checking them both before handing one to Evelyn. She took it, the weight unfamiliar in her hand. I've never shot a gun before. Then you're about to learn. Roman grabbed a box of ammunition and headed for the door. Come on. He took her to a shooting range in the basement, a room Evelyn hadn't even known existed, and spent the next hour teaching her how to load, aim, and fire. The first few shots went wide, the recoil startling, but by the end of the hour, Evelyn could hit the target more often than not. Not bad, Roman said, watching her empty the clip into the paper silhouette downrange. But remember, in a real situation, your hands will be shaking, your heart will be racing. It won't be this clean. I know. He reloaded the gun, handing it back to her. One more round, then we prep for tonight. The plan was simple, which Roman said was always the best kind. Sokolov would come to the estate, expecting to find Evelyn vulnerable and alone. Instead, he'd walk into a trap. Roman's men would be positioned around the property, hidden but ready. Dante would be inside with them, and Evelyn would be the bait. I don't like this, Dante said for the 3rd time, pacing the length of the study. She's not trained for this. If something goes wrong, nothing's going to go wrong, Roman said evenly. We've accounted for every variable. You can't account for everything, Dante looked at Evelyn. Are you sure about this? I'm sure. She's made up her mind, Roman said. And frankly, she's right. Sokolov's going to keep coming until he gets what he wants. We end this tonight. Dante shook his head but didn't argue further. As the sun set, Roman's men took their positions. Evelyn could see them from the window, shadows moving through the trees, disappearing into strategic points around the property. Inside, the house was quiet, almost eerily so. Roman had sent Vivian and the staff away, leaving just the 3 of them. Roman handed Evelyn the gun, now loaded. Keep this on you. If you have to use it, don't hesitate. Aim for center mass, just like I showed you. I won't freeze. I know you won't. He cupped her face, his thumb brushing her cheek. But I need to say this anyway. If things go sideways, if it looks like we're losing, you run. You get out of here and you don't look back. Understand? I'm not leaving you. Evelyn, I'm not leaving you, she repeated, her voice steady. So let's make sure things don't go sideways. Roman held her gaze for a long moment. Then he kissed her, hard, desperate, like he was trying to memorize the feel of her. I love you, he said against her lips. I should have said it sooner, but I'm saying it now. I love you. Evelyn's breath caught. I love you too. Good. He pulled back, his expression shifting into something cold and focused. Now, let's end this. They didn't have to wait long. At 9 o'clock, the security sensors at the gate went off. Roman checked the monitors, his jaw tightening. 4 vehicles, maybe 15 men. He looked at Dante. Get into position. Dante nodded and disappeared upstairs. Roman turned to Evelyn. You stay in the sitting room. Don't move unless I tell you to. She nodded, her heart pounding. The minutes crawled by. Evelyn sat in the sitting room, the gun heavy in her lap, listening to the silence. Then she heard it, voices outside, low and harsh. The sound of footsteps on gravel. A door being forced open somewhere on the first floor. Roman appeared in the doorway, his own gun drawn. They're inside. How many? Too many to count, but we're ready. He moved to the window, peering through the curtain. Sokolov's smart. He sent half his men around the back. Dante's handling it. More footsteps. Closer now. Roman positioned himself by the door, his body a wall between Evelyn and whoever was coming. She stood, moving to the side where she'd have a clear line of sight, but wouldn't be immediately visible. The door burst open. A man stepped through, tall, broad, with a scar running down his neck. He saw Roman and smiled. Vale, I was hoping you'd be here. Sokolov, Roman said evenly, you're trespassing. And you're in my way. Sokolov's gaze flicked past Roman, landing on Evelyn. His smile widened. There she is. The reason I came all this way. You're not touching her, Roman said quietly. We'll see about that. Sokolov raised his gun and everything happened at once. Roman fired first, hitting Sokolov in the shoulder. Sokolov stumbled back, swearing, but didn't go down. More men poured into the room, and suddenly the air was full of gunfire. Evelyn dropped behind the couch, her ears ringing, her hands shaking so hard she almost dropped the gun. Roman was moving, firing, shouting orders. She saw Dante appear in the doorway, taking down 2 men before they even saw him. The room was chaos, noise and smoke and bodies hitting the floor. And then she saw Sokolov. He'd gotten back up, blood streaming from his shoulder, and he was moving toward her. Roman was on the other side of the room, pinned down by 2 of Sokolov's men, and wouldn't reach her in time. Evelyn raised the gun. Her hands were shaking. Her heart was pounding so hard she thought it might explode, but she remembered what Roman had taught her. Center mass. Steady breath. Squeeze. Don't pull. She fired. The first shot went wide, hitting the wall behind Sokolov. He laughed, raising his own gun. Evelyn fired again. This time she hit him. Center mass, just like Roman said. Sokolov's eyes went wide and he dropped to his knees. Evelyn stood there, frozen, the gun still raised, watching him fall. Then Roman was there, pulling her into his arms, checking her for injuries. Are you hurt? Evelyn, look at me. Are you hurt? I'm fine, she managed. I'm fine. You did good. He pressed a kiss to her forehead. You did so good. The rest of Sokolov's men were either dead or fleeing. Roman's men had them surrounded, and within minutes, it was over. Dante appeared, bleeding from a cut on his arm, but otherwise unharmed. We got them all, he said, breathing hard. Sokolov's the last one. Roman looked at Sokolov, still on his knees, blood pooling beneath him. He walked over, crouching down so they were eye level. You came into my home, Roman said quietly. You threatened my wife. Did you really think you were going to walk out of here? Sokolov coughed, blood on his lips. You're finished, Vale. You think this is over? There's always someone else. Not for you. Roman stood, turning to his men. Get him out of here. I don't care where. Just make sure he's never a problem again. They dragged Sokolov out, and Roman turned back to Evelyn. She was still holding the gun, her hands finally starting to shake now that the adrenaline was fading. Give me that, Roman said gently, taking it from her. He set it aside, then pulled her close again. It's over. I promise. It's over. Evelyn buried her face in his chest and finally let herself fall apart. The police came an hour later. Roman had already called them, already had a story prepared. Home invasion, self-defense, everything clean, everything legal. They took statements, examined the scene, and left without any issues. By midnight, the house was quiet again. Evelyn sat in the kitchen, wrapped in a blanket, while Roman cleaned the cut on Dante's arm. No one had said much since the police left. What was there to say? You shot a man tonight, Dante finally said, looking at Evelyn. How are you holding up? I don't know yet, she admitted. Ask me tomorrow. Fair enough. He winced as Roman tightened the bandage. For what it's worth, you saved Roman's life. Sokolov would have killed him if you hadn't fired. Evelyn hadn't thought about it like that, but now that Dante said it, she realized it was true. If she'd frozen, if she'd hesitated, Roman would be dead. I'm glad I didn't freeze, she said quietly. So am I. Roman finished with the bandage and sat down beside her. I know this isn't the life you signed up for. I didn't sign up for any of this, Evelyn said. But I'm still here. You could leave. After tonight, if you wanted to walk away, I wouldn't stop you. Evelyn looked at him. Is that what you want? No, but it's what you deserve. A choice. A real one. She thought about it. About the bakery, about the life she'd built, about the man sitting beside her who'd given her everything and asked for nothing in return. And she realized the answer was easy. I'm not leaving, she said. This is my life now, for better or worse. Roman's expression softened. For better or worse. Over the next few months, things finally truly settled. The bakery thrived. Evelyn expanded the menu, hired 2 more employees, and started hosting open mic nights every Friday. The place was always full, always warm, always exactly what she'd wanted it to be. Roman came by at least once a week, sitting in his corner with his coffee, watching her work with that same quiet pride. Roman's business shifted too. He started divesting from the illegal operations, putting money into legitimate ventures, restaurants, real estate, security firms. It wasn't a fast process, and there were still parts of his world that Evelyn didn't ask about. But she saw the change, saw him trying to build something that wouldn't end in violence. Vivian softened in her own way. She still had opinions about everything, still tested Evelyn constantly, but there was a grudging respect there now. She'd even stopped by the bakery once, tried a lemon tart, and admitted, quietly, like it pained her, that it was excellent. Dante became Evelyn's best friend. He showed up at the bakery constantly, stealing pastries and making Maria laugh, and he was always the first person to defend Evelyn when Vivian started in on her. But the biggest change was in Evelyn herself. She wasn't the girl who'd been left at the altar anymore. She wasn't the woman who'd been traded like property. She was someone who'd fought for what she wanted, who'd stood her ground when it would have been easier to run, who'd built a life from the ashes of her old one. And she was loved, truly, deeply loved, by a man who'd started as a stranger and become her home. 1 year after the wedding, on a crisp autumn morning, Roman asked her to come to the bakery early. Why? Evelyn asked, still half asleep. We don't open for another 2 hours. Just trust me. She got dressed and drove to the bakery, confused but curious. When she walked inside, she found the lights on and Roman standing in the middle of the room, dressed in jeans and a sweater instead of his usual suit. What's going on? She asked. I wanted to do this here, Roman said, where it all started, where you rebuilt yourself. Do what? He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small velvet box. Evelyn's breath caught. Roman opened the box, revealing a ring, simple, elegant, nothing like the one she'd worn the first time they got married. I know we're already married. I know we did this once before in a courthouse, because we didn't have a choice. But I want to ask you now, for real, with no contracts, no pressure, no shadows between us. He took her hand. Evelyn Wexler Vale, will you marry me? Again? The right way this time? Evelyn felt tears prick her eyes. You're asking me to marry you in a bakery at 7 in the morning. Yes. That's the least romantic proposal I've ever heard. Is that a no? It's a yes, you idiot. She laughed, wiping her eyes. Yes, of course yes. Roman slipped the ring onto her finger, then pulled her into his arms, kissing her like they had all the time in the world. When they finally pulled apart, Evelyn looked down at the ring, then back at him. So when are we doing this? Another courthouse wedding? Actually, I was thinking something bigger. A real ceremony. Invite people. Make it count. Roman smiled. Unless you'd rather keep it small. No, I want the whole thing. The white dress, the flowers, the vows that actually mean something. She paused. And I want to do it here, at the bakery. In a bakery? It's where I found myself again. Where we started being real. It's perfect. Roman kissed her forehead. Then that's what we'll do. They got married 3 months later, on a Saturday afternoon in February. The bakery was transformed. White flowers everywhere, chairs set up in rows, the smell of fresh bread and roses filling the air. Evelyn wore a dress she'd picked out herself, simple and beautiful, and she walked down the aisle, between the tables she'd chosen, past the counter where she worked every day, toward Roman. He was waiting for her at the front, Dante beside him as best man, and when he saw her, his expression shifted into something so tender it made her chest ache. This time, when the officiant asked if she took Roman to be her husband, Evelyn didn't hesitate, didn't doubt, didn't feel trapped. "I do," she said, and meant it with everything she had. "I do," Roman echoed, his voice steady and sure. And when they kissed, the small crowd erupted into applause. The reception was held right there in the bakery, tables pushed together, food and wine and laughter filling the space. Maria cried through half of it. Dante gave a speech that was equal parts heartfelt and embarrassing. Even Vivian smiled, which Evelyn considered a minor miracle. Late in the evening, after most of the guests had left, Evelyn and Roman stood outside on the sidewalk, looking at the bakery through the windows. Inside, the lights were still on, the remnants of the reception scattered across the tables. "We did it," Evelyn said softly. "We did." Roman wrapped his arm around her shoulders. "You did, really. This place, this life, you built it." "We built it," she corrected. "Together." Roman kissed the top of her head. "I'm proud of you. I don't say it enough, but I am. I'm proud of us." She leaned into him. "For surviving, for choosing each other, even when we didn't have to." "I'll always choose you," Roman said quietly, "no matter what comes next." Evelyn looked up at him, at the man who'd started as an obligation and become her everything. "Good, because I'm not going anywhere." They stood there for a while longer, wrapped in each other, watching the bakery glow in the darkness. Inside those walls were memories of loss, of struggle, of rebuilding, but also of hope, of love, of a future that neither of them had seen coming but both of them had fought to protect. Evelyn had been left at an altar once, humiliated and heartbroken, certain that her life was over. But standing here now, with Roman's arms around her and a ring on her finger that actually meant something, she realized the truth. Her life hadn't ended that day. It had finally, truly begun. And whatever came next, whatever challenges or dangers or impossibilities lay ahead, she knew one thing for certain. She wasn't facing them alone. Not anymore. Not ever again.